Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of law firm Alchemy. My guest today, we'll call him the $100 million man, or at least the $100 million verdict. I'm sure we'll talk about that. He's got an event he's going to do about that coming up shortly after this episode releases. He's someone who I saw pop up several times on social media, a continually growing presence, and who seemed to have a really earnest approach about a firm that's just about 10 years old right now. I believe he may correct me if I'm wrong on that. I try to do my research. And by the way, you can speak before I even say your name. It's okay if you have to correct my details. But he runs an amazing firm up in Connecticut, the Connecticut Trial Law Firm. My guest today is Ryan McKeen. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Charlie, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I noticed, well, actually, we'll go into some anniversary stuff that I want to talk about. You have both a wedding anniversary and a firm anniversary that you're celebrating, one recently, the other coming up. But first, I have to ask my question. What is the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
Charlie, we could do 100 things they don't teach you in law school, but I think that the most important thing that they don't teach in law school is an abundance mindset. I think that in law school you are constantly competing against your peers. Like you're graded on a curve. There are only so many spots on different journals, only so many spots on a moot court team, and also like their definition of success is so small. It's so tiny. It's like you get a clerkship with a certain judge. You maybe work at a bigger firm, and that is what success is. And the reality is, in the profession, there is abundance. Like, there is ample opportunities for success. There are ample ways to succeed. And I really think that law schools fail in teaching any sort of abundance research mindset. And what they do is they really deeply instill in lawyers a scarcity mindset.
Why?
Why? It's just, it's in part tradition. It's in part like that is what training is, and I also just think it is in part like economically advantageous for the powers that be.
Yes, you use a phrase that I love. Yes, the powers that be.
But if you are needing to feed basically widgets into big firms to go out and bill hours, like that is what you do. You teach them that this is the only way, that you're a failure if you're not doing this, that this is what success looks like, and that you are out competing against your peers for clients and billable hours and opportunity. And that is what's going to cause somebody to maybe stick in a job that they shouldn't stick in. And again, these are the backgrounds where the professors come from. These are what the law schools feed into. And I think it's a giant problem.
So you use the term that, I always prefer it when a lawyer uses it, but to use the term widgets, right? You're so correct that there is a process of churning out widgets for other firms to then hire and monetize, right? And I think a lot of firm owners, people who are firm owners today, were on that path at one point. What about your own journey? Were you a widget for a while before opening your own firm?
I guess you could say so, but I think I was very fortunate in the sense that I never wanted that. Like I was like, look, I was so happy to be a lawyer. I'm the first person in my family to graduate college from a 4-year college.
Oh, wow.
And I was so happy to be a lawyer. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to help people. So I worked at a very small firm. I came out of law school and I worked at a small general practice local firm, the kind of firms that are closing up if they even exist in your town, where people, they get a DUI, they call you, they get in a car accident, they call you, they get in a divorce, they call you, and handling a bunch of different matters like that. So, yeah, I mean, to the extent I was generating revenue for the firm, absolutely. But it wasn't anywhere, it was, I think, a throwback in a way that, I didn't have hourly billable requirements. Right. I didn't have those kinds of things. It was just come in, here's the work, do good work. Yeah, and obviously be profitable for the firm, but it never felt like what my friends at much larger firms experience regarding, hey, bill 2,200 hours and having your bills written down, and everything is about billing.
Okay, so that means that there was probably something in your past, maybe your upbringing, that kept you maybe from going that route. What drove you in that direction of I'm going to find a spot maybe in a smaller firm where I have a little bit more autonomy? What pushed you that way?
I think a few different things. I mean, one of which being that like I went to Framingham State College. I went to Western New England College School of Law. I know it's not even a college anymore. They just call it Western New England School of Law. So I mean, look, I went to a tier 4 law school that was actually founded by the YMCA to go out and help people. So really,
I'm
the
sorry,
only
what?
people it was founded in like the 1920s to go by the YMCA as basically like night school for largely
Wow.
immigrant communities, Italian immigrants, Irish immigrants here in Springfield, Massachusetts, to go out and to help to be lawyers because they needed lawyers with things like wills and real estate and criminal defense and whatever. So in my school, like you know, 3, 4, 5 people, like they were the only ones who were getting those jobs, getting jobs like that. Period. My wife was one of those people who did, but I was in the top 20% of my class, but you needed to be in the top 3% of your class. So that really wasn't open to me writ large. And it didn't matter to me because I went to law school to try to help people. Like I wanted to be that person. I wanted to be the person who helped solve problems. I never wanted to work for big companies. I didn't want to work for the government. Like none of that ever really interested me. And I also, you know what I wanted experience. So even if I had the chance to go to a mid-sized firm, it's like I wanted to be the one taking the depositions, trying the case, and I was able to gain that experience at a very small firm at a very early age, and that I think really helped me in my career. Like I was seeking experience at that point.
Yeah, that's something that I always love to hear, honestly, Ryan, because so I was a theater major in college. I don't know how much you know about the backstory there, but I was a theater major in college, and I went to a college that doesn't have a vaunted theater program, George Mason University. And the reason that I went there is because they told me one thing that almost no other college and yes, it turns out there's recruiting in the theater community into college, that no other college recruited me said, which was you can audition for plays right away, right? That was a big thing. You actually get an opportunity, you get your shot. So you already had that idea in mind of more than anything else, I want experience. How has that informed the decisions that you've made since working in that small firm and trying to open your own firm?
Yeah, I think it was a great gift to me because when you're at a small firm, like you have to learn. I mean, you have to learn the basics of business. Like you have to learn how to generate clients. You have to learn intake. You have to know a little bit. You have to know how to handle a case from start to finish. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable and to go out and to make arguments, to constantly challenge yourself. Like it's not a very comfortable life if you're in a small law firm. You may not have people for that. But the ability to go out and to learn the law, to learn from good lawyers, and to start building a practice was incredibly attractive to me.
So you describe it as being uncomfortable. What allows you to live through uncomfortable situations and come out the other end?
That is, I think that's a muscle, Charlie. I really do, because look, like being uncomfortable, like it's uncomfortable for everyone. Like like I'm sure as hard as he is, David Goggins gets uncomfortable, and that's uncomfortable for him. It's just that the he's got so much experience being uncomfortable that he gets uncomfortable at just a higher level of than maybe us mere mortals out there listening. Um, and so I think it's just a constant, pushing your own comfort zone. Okay, I'm gonna file the lawsuit. I'm gonna argue the appeal. I'm gonna try the case. I'm going to have the client meeting, take the critical deposition. And as you do it, you start to build up that muscle. You start to build up that strength. I mean, there's no secret to it. There are nerves, there are sleepless nights, there are over prepping, there is self-doubt, there is imposter syndrome. Like, everybody goes through that. But
Yeah.
there's no substitute for going out there, doing the thing, pushing through, thinking about it, and then doing the next thing and pushing through.
I mean, just as true in business, right? So when it comes to growing your own firm, I'm interested in the story, right? So if I saw correctly, I don't know if it's the anniversary specifically of the firm or a name change, but Connecticut Trial Law Firm. Was that opened September 1st, about a decade ago?
Yeah, interesting. Let me unpack this story. So
Please.
I went. I worked for my small firm for 6.5 years. And I decided at that point, like, I actually read the Steve Jobs bio, and I was like, my life is being way too conservative. And I am 30 years old, 32 at the time, and I'm like, I need to, like, fulfill my purpose in life. And it can't just be doing the same thing that I'm doing. So I'm like, I need to take some risk here. And I texted one of my friends. I was in the Bahamas, and I texted after a few Bahama Mamas or whatever the drinks were. I texted my friend Megan Freed, and I said, "Hey, Megan," I was like, "You want to start a law firm?" And she must have thought that it was the most insane text. She was in-house counsel at an insurance company. She was a friend, and she was like, "Well, let's talk." And so we started talking, and we decided to launch a law firm probably, I think, about 6 months after that initial text, and we went through the planning phases. And that didn't work out. Like, with probably within like 3-4 months, maybe 6 months at the most, like, we weren't talking. And so that was uncomfortable.
Wow.
And then a year into it, I got an email one morning from Megan saying, "You know what? I think we're done, or let's be done." And I was like, okay. And I went out and I went solo. So I founded McKeen Law Firm, and that was September 1st, 2023. And all's well that ends well. I am friends with Megan. I was texting with her yesterday.
Okay, good.
It was very uncomfortable for a number of years, but Megan and Kristen, my former business partners, are great gifts in my life because they helped me on my journey. Like, I was scared. I don't know that I would have just gone solo by myself. Like, it felt good to have a friend. And they helped me do that, and I helped them do it. They have a very successful family law firm. I wanted to focus more on personal injury, and over time, time heals a lot of wounds.
So still doing trials, fewer hearings, though.
Yeah, yep. So I went out on my own, and I got that email on a Saturday, and I think by a Tuesday I signed a lease, created McKeen Law Firm, and off I went doing that. So I spent probably about a year or so just as a pure solo. I didn't like that at all. I'm a social creature, and that didn't work. In 2014, I met my now business partner, Andrew Garza, who we bonded over talking about wanting to do trial work and wanting to represent plaintiffs. And then we started going to seminars together nationally, and really trying to say, okay, we really like this, even though we both had our own practices. In 2016, we formed Connecticut Trial Firm, and that sort of was a expense sharing arrangement. And then that grew more complicated over time. And then by 2018, we merged our firms, became a true partnership, and started hiring people for Connecticut Trial Firm.
Well, congratulations on the upcoming 10-year anniversary of going out on your own. I mean, that's obviously not only beating the odds, but just a huge and awesome accomplishment. So congrats on that, Ryan. And it leads to an inevitable question. You now have 10 years of lessons behind you of growing a practice, and let's focus on the business side here. What are some of the biggest business lessons that you that happened during the first, we'll call it 3 years? We'll try and dissect this in 3-year increments. First 3 years, most important business lessons.
Okay. When you're starting a business, set it up right. Plan for success, okay? So get your books in order from day one. Invest in software that you can grow with. You really start thinking about, like, not only what's the best for me today, what is it I'm likely to be able to grow into and grow with, okay? And so So I think laying that foundation, and again, the foundation for a lot of our tech stack has not changed all that much since that time, because we were like,
Really?
okay, well, in some basics, like we've added critical pieces, but it was like, at the time I felt Dropbox was like best in class, and it was like, okay, we're going to use Dropbox. I preferred I don't even know, Google Apps for Business, a G Suite. I don't know what they're calling it this moment.
Close enough.
But I was like, that is a great email calendaring software that we decided to use. And a lot of those pieces sort of stick with us today. So I would say in the beginning, very much, and some of this is what I've done and what I've not done, or I didn't do. But one, be very intentional about the work it is that you want to do. Start doing the vision work for your firm. Like I can't recommend the book Traction enough. Read the first 75 pages, even if you don't go beyond it, and set the vision. Identify your ideal client, identify the work you want to do, know what your values are, and start mapping out like a 10-year plan as to where it is that you want to be. Like, I didn't have much vision with it when I was with Megan. Like, our vision was just like, hey, let's be awesome. And like that is not an appropriate vision for reasons we can talk about. But I think also, and as you don't start focusing on what you don't have. Like, there are going to be people out there way better marketing budgets, who appear way more successful, have way more money, influence, maybe even talent than you. Don't focus on that. Focus on doing excellent work for what you have. Like, look at the clients you have, get great results for them. Like, look at the work that you have and get better at it. So maybe you don't have $100 million paralysis case, but maybe you got a $100,000 car accident. Get the $100,000, learn your craft, take the depots, get respect from defense counsel, get respect from the judges. Go do those things, get better at what it is that you're doing. So sort of critically, if we're talking 2012 to 2015, like, those are the things that I would focus on doing. A real good question, and if you don't want to ask it, that's fine, I'll ask myself, is, well, what do you wish you had done earlier? Okay? What do you wish you had done earlier? And these two things are, I think, critically important. One of which is I would have hired much earlier. Hiring was incredibly scary. I didn't hire a full-time employee until 2018. 6 years.
Wow.
I had a part-time assistant for 9 hours a week. She joined me in about 2013, but I didn't hire full-time until 2018. And boy, did I cost myself a lot of money.
So why did you wait until 2018?
Because I never felt like I had the money to do it. I never felt like comfortable enough. It was like, I'm struggling to like take home money as it is. The firm is like, I'm working all the time, but like, is there enough extra to support another salary in addition to mine? Like, I'm not making very much money. But the reason I wasn't making very much money is because I was doing tasks that were far beneath me. I was doing things that could have been done for $10 to $15 an hour, and just working nonstop and capping up my top level income. So I would have gone back. I would have made a leap, and I would have hired much earlier.
So why did you hire in 2018? Like, what switch flipped for you?
Well, what happened is that we got the case that became the $100 million verdict. And I said, look, we have to build the firm to support this case. Like, this is a big case.
Wow.
We've honed our skills. We don't want to refer the case out. Like, we want to handle this case. Like, we were meant to do this. We were confident in our abilities. However, in order to get there, we're going to need a very good paralegal. We're going to need that help. We also had other cases. And if we're going to get a paralegal, we also need somebody who can help us do reception and intake and scan the mail, because we don't want all of her time eaten up by those things. And if we're going to have these other two people, we need somebody to help us with workers' comp insurance and everything. So we brought in an office admin. So really, in January of 2018, we went from me and Andrew and my part-time assistant to adding 3 full-time people that month.
Wow, that's quite a leap. Okay, so hiring. You would have hired sooner. What other lessons come from back then? What would you have done different?
I would have paid for marketing. Okay. Like that also always felt out of reach. And it was always one of these things of like, I don't have a lot of money, but I wasn't paying for any sort of marketing. I have a newsflash out there for anybody listening. Paid marketing works. Like it is all paid. It is all essentially pay for play. You pay cash or you pay with time. But I would have spent money purposefully into marketing. I would have taken a percentage of my gross revenue and I would have said, okay, here's what I anticipate for the year. Here's what I'm going to spend into marketing, and I would have made sure I spent it. I didn't do that.
Do you have now a gross percentage that you dedicate to marketing?
Yes.
Do you mind sharing what that percentage is?
Yeah. Our percentage for a PI firm is actually very, very low. And probably too low, honestly, to support where we are. But our problem is not at the moment, or has not been ever, generating good cases. Like we're able to do it. We have allocated 6% of gross revenue to marketing, and I think that is too low. But if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're making $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year gross or $300,000 a year gross, yeah, like $12 or $18,000 a year, $1,000 a month, or however it is you want to do, like really sort of look into spend that. If you want to grow faster, you can look at 10%. You can look at, in PI firms are crazy. They'll spend 25 to 40% of gross into marketing, some of these firms. You don't have to go there, but you're going to start seeing results. The more you spend, the faster your results are going to happen for you. So take that into account, but definitely set aside a percentage of gross revenue. I would set 6% as the absolute floor. I wouldn't recommend that. And make sure you spend it too. Like it's one of these things, like don't just say, okay, I'm going to allocate $18,000 this year for marketing. And then, your Google AdWords don't perform and you've spent $1,200. Like, no, figure out a way to burn through that money.
You always have to be testing. I mean, that is really important. I'm glad that you emphasized that, Ryan, that idea of if you have that money designated for marketing, it does need to be spent on marketing. Otherwise, right, like what's the point, essentially? You mentioned 6%. Usually when I'm coaching firms, I tell them somewhere between 7 to 15%, up to 20 to 22% if you're in heavy growth mode. So sure, you're on the low end, but I mean, I know you're going to be shooting TV commercials, all that. I do want to revisit some of the, that middle third and the last third, but what has changed about your marketing over the last few years? How are you pressing the accelerator?
I don't think actually much has changed. We're just able to do more of it. We're able to reach more people. So like we're doing a really fun commercial spot today, but this is sort of like equivalent to the videos that we would film on our cell phones in the office. Okay. Like we're doing a spot where we have an NIL deal with a 6'6" woman basketball player from University of Connecticut, which is awesome. Hysterical because I'm 5'6", right? and so we're doing a whole like back and forth commercial. Like, she says like, I'm great on the court. We're great in court. Yeah. She goes, I'm 6'6". I'm 5'6". So we're going to have this sort of like back and forth thing. So that would have been completely inaccessible to us, probably even like over a year ago. But being able to sort of take our brand, amplify it, work with vendors, spend more into working with vendors. This gets back to your vision work, and this gets back to doing sort of your knowing who you are, knowing what your values are, doing that initial branding work, because as you scale, it really just becomes about amplification. Maybe you can buy $10 worth of Facebook ads, and then you're really big and you can buy $1,000. Like, okay, like it's really the same game at larger scale, I think, for us.
So let's talk about vision. I mean, you even mentioned earlier, right? Like that's a place we should absolutely go, because I have multiple coaching clients right now who are writing down their visions. This is part of the process that they're supposed to be working on. Advice that you would give to your past self about setting a vision, what would it be?
It's the most important work you will do at your firm. And I'm going to tell you, in March of 2017, my partner Andrew and I sat down. We had the traction workbook, the vision, VT organizer. We sat in a mid-level bar down the road at High Tops, and we sat there and we did the worksheet. And we set our big, hairy, audacious goal to be a $10 million jury verdict. And the reason why we set that goal was that we wanted to be recognized as one of the top trial firms in Connecticut. Like, that's what we wanted to be in 10 years. That's what we wanted our future to look like. So what we started doing is that, and keep in mind, we didn't have a case maybe worth $100,000 at this point. So this was, I don't know about manifestation. I don't know what it is, but we were putting out there something that felt really, really uncomfortable to us, and really out of reach. Like, it was absurd, looking back on it. But what it did, it was like, hey, are we going to spend money to go to this trial college? Yes. Are we going to, where are our best cases coming from? Networking with other people. Okay, we're going to spend whatever marketing dollars we have in networking. We're going to also know that to get that result, we're going to need to start building a business. So that's when we're like, okay, that's when we started switching to FileVine for our case management. In May of 2017, we started building up what is now a massive private Wikipedia page, a Wikipedia site we use in Tetra for all of our knowledge base. That started in 2017. We started looking to hire, thinking about hiring. And then in September of 2017, we met Mikey Cruz. Mikey Cruz was paralyzed through no fault of his own as a result of Philips Signify failing to wrap light bulbs to a pallet in combination with a temporary worker who should have probably been operating a reach truck at a higher level than he was, and that became the $100 million case.
Wow.
And so we had to get our finances in order. We had to get a whole bunch of things, but none of it ever happens without us saying, like, this is what we want to do. This is what we want to build. You can build a PI firm in a very different way. You could say, I want to be the firm with the most volume. I want to be a settlement mill, whatever it is. Like, I want to be mass torts. But we knew what we wanted to do. And so that work is just so critical. And I will tell you, I've been fortunate to hang out with some incredibly successful people. To a person, the most successful people I know have the clearest visions for their companies in themselves. They know the headcount, the revenue. They know what it's going to look like, feel like, who their clients are going to be, and where they're going to come from 10 years from now, or close.
Look, I have to echo the vision part, because when I went and set up shop, there was a vision version 1.0 of what I was going to do. I actually started out just, what am I going to do by the end of the year, right? Monthly recurring revenue, all that type of stuff. Here's the power of vision. It happened on day 9. I had to start working on Vision 2.0 right at that point in time. I just have to testify to Vision. I worked from Vivid Vision by Cameron Harold, another great resource. You know, the resources in Traction. Traction has become huge in the legal sphere. I know Mike Morris with Fireproof has definitely brought a lot to market. But you doing this in 2017, that's kind of ahead of the curve overall. What got you there?
Well, this speaks to something else. Like, you need to learn from people who have done the thing, or you need to have a coach, like, period. Like, that is like entry level, I think, to get where you want. And I had the good fortune of signing up for Rosen Institute with Lee Rosen, and it was like
He's
$169
awesome.
a month, and it felt like $1 million at the time. And all of a sudden, one day in my office, the book Traction appeared. Lee had sent it. Not Lee. Lee is off in Vietnam or wherever he is traveling the world. But he has some system set up where if you sign up, Traction gets ordered and sent to you. And instead of just ignoring the book, I started reading it. And I was like, okay, well, it makes sense to me that if our computers have operating systems, like, our businesses need to have operating systems. And so that became the structural framework for our firm. And we started setting rocks, and we started imperfectly. We are now just so you're out there. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, flawless traction implementation. You don't need to go out there and hire an expensive EOS implementer to start. Like, do your best. Do the vision work. Do quarterly meetings, even if they're with yourself. Set the goals. Set the 3-year goals. Set all that stuff. Like, have accountability, even if it's just with you. And so it's really, really not actually until 2023 actually working with John Nakazel and really setting up having an outside implementer. Kate Nakazel, his daughter, is our implementer,
Awesome.
and really implementing traction in a big way. But having an outside person do it is incredibly useful. But don't if you are under $1 million in revenue, don't do that. Don't sweat that. Just get the book, do the stuff, do the work, and you'll be okay.
I am going to pull that clip of you speaking for the last 2 minutes, and I'm going to send it out to a few people who, honestly, Ryan, needed to hear exactly what you just said, because they're waffling between the, like, can I just get started? Do I have to have an implementer? So I appreciate you putting that message out there. What for you, okay, now you're flipping over to having an implementer. For someone who might be thinking about early traction, level of sloppiness, but what would be the first 3 main things to pay attention to and get in place for them?
Yeah. Vision, 3-year strategic plan, 1-year plan, and then rocks. Like that, and that's basically what traction is. And with a regular meeting schedule. So even if you're by yourself, just say, okay, the quarter's ending. I'm going to spend this afternoon going through what my rocks should be, going through if I met my rocks. Like, that is totally cool. Or having a meeting with your paralegal, like, whatever it is, like just do those basic things and you're going to get ahead. I will say that the firms that, I mean, look, our goal was a $10 million jury verdict. We don't get there without doing that work that day or those days. We ended up getting a $100 million jury verdict in 5 years, which caused us to have to go back and redo our vision, which speaks to something you spoke to. Like, yes, vision can be fluid. And if it's not working for you, like, you're not in a place that maybe like anything else, you thought you wanted to marry this person and it turns out that maybe you shouldn't have. Fine. Get a new vision. I think that's okay. So don't feel like, you're getting married to what you need to be in 10 years. Like, set the best vision you can for the time you're setting it.
Okay, you've just given me such a transition point that I have to ask about it. Maybe we'll come back to the middle third and later third. But you recently celebrated your 20th wedding anniversary. So 20 years of marriage, that's no small feat. Between being a driven entrepreneur, what keeps that alive? Why do you think you have a successful relationship?
I married somebody wonderful. I think that's probably the biggest thing. But I mean, look, businesses, relationships, everything, it requires work. It requires vision, wanting to do it. It requires empathy, understanding, forgiveness, and shared dreams. I think, I can't give any relationship advice other than, like, marry the right person. But it's sort of almost like I've been thinking a lot about hiring and how, like, look, we have all sorts of systems and we have all sorts of training and, like, we're robust in this way. But I just think, like, if you hire the right person, it just all works out. Like, it works out better than you could have hoped. And if you don't have the right person in the right seat, like, it never works no matter what you do. So I think that there's sort of that moment in the beginning that matters the most. Like I said,
okay, so hey, so you know what? We'll all count our blessings when it comes to marrying the right person, for sure. Okay, so hiring. You say you have a lot of systems and everything. What do some of those look like, and how do you help yourself or help the team make great hires?
Yeah. Look, hiring is I just had a conversation with our director of human resources right before this podcast about hiring and retention and growth. hiring is the hardest thing. I mean, look, you have big companies out there, Google and Microsoft and Amazon, and like they are batting like 50% at best. This is like worldwide. And they presumably have people with all sorts of resources, experience, backgrounds, trying to find and vet the best hires. So understand that it is really imperfect. Okay. So here is what we do. Here's what we have learned for our hiring. One of which is to sort of ask, like, what is the motivation of this person to want to work here? Like, that is really critical. So one of the things that we have found is people who, for whatever reason, see our firm as a step up from where they are. Like, that is great. Like, they are happy to be here. People who see it as a lateral move, like, that's like a yellow flag for us. And if it's like, well, I'm taking a pay cut and this and that, like that's sort of a red flag despite whatever skill level that they have. Okay. If it's top level talent, you need to be recruiting that talent. That person who you need to hire, they have a job. They have the potential to get other jobs. That needs to be a phone call, a lunch, a LinkedIn message. That developing that relationship can take several years even. If you're like, I want this person to come work with me, that can take some time. So at the very top levels, it is about identifying talent in the market and going out and recruiting it. That's all of our top level hires. And, but okay, so that's not the position you're in. If you're out there listening to this, fine. So understand the motivation. One of the things that we are big into is trying to stealth check references. Not the people that they give, but it's like, hey, they overlapped with this person. Like, here we don't even bother calling references on people who apply. Just they're going to say something good. So we try to stealth check those references and see if there's any sort of shadow network that we have, friends of friends or that kind of thing. That's useful.
Well, that is also a shadow network.
Well, you know what I'm saying. It's like hey, it's LinkedIn is a tremendous idea for how your whole network is connected. Okay, and just find people.
How is the shadow network not a Tom Clancy novel, by the way?
It should be, because hiring feels a lot of Cloak and Dagger and spy. But anyhow, let me. The defining, you need to define what it is, the skill set, the job is. And so this is a mistake I see a lot of law firms make, where it's like the person who may be a great paralegal, a great litigation paralegal, may be terrible at intake, or may not be the person you want in charge of office admin. Like, these could be vastly different people. So don't assume that people, a person may be immensely qualified and a good fit for one job in your organization and not a fit for any other role in that organization. So really define what it is that you're hiring for and look for things in their background that show that they do this. What are their hobbies? Like what are their interests? Like what other jobs have they had? Are they very into like detail jobs, working alone? And okay, that may be a great paralegal. Are they very social and outgoing? That may be a great person on your intake team. Are they very creative? That may be not what you need for a paralegal, and it may be exactly what you need for your marketing team. So like start defining your roles. Have multiple levels of interviews, because one of the things that we always find is we have tremendous bias in interview. We have never gotten to a point where we have proactively hired. We are always reacting. Like, it's like we have a demand, we need somebody, and the bias becomes just to hire out of like pain, essentially. But always have, whether it's an office admin, whether it's an existing person in that role, another lawyer in your firm, always have them interview and get some feedback, because you as an owner may just be like, I need this person. And finally, we use Real Talent Hiring. We use Jay Henderson.
I love Jay. And he was on a previous episode of this podcast.
I love Jay as well. We swear by him. We have used him for 4 years, and he has really helped us improve our hiring and retention and management in a lot of ways. So really strongly consider using somebody like, Jay is who we use. But if there's other people out there, use somebody like that who is sort of another check, who can give you sort of a decent idea as to who to hire. So, I mean, that's the short of hiring. And even then, every person we've hired has been a data point for sure. And we're getting better at who fits and who doesn't and why they fit. But I think those are the basics.
Okay, so I want to bring this a little full circle here. We talk about bringing new people onto the team, and the very first thing that you talked about is abundance mentality. It is oftentimes when team members come on board and they see a growing organization, they're thinking about, how do I get my piece of the pie, etc. How do you bring the abundance mentality into the firm?
Look, you as a leader of your firm are in part like parent, in part teacher. Which is, and what do parents and teachers do? They repeat themselves all the time. So you should get sick of saying the same thing, which is that, look, growth allows us to create more opportunity. It allows us to promote people. It allows us to get better technology. It allows us to give bonuses, raises, get better healthcare. And so if we're able to improve our team by adding people, like a rising tide does lift all boats in the firm. And the flip of it is if you're not able to do those things, I tell our team, like, businesses, you're either growing or dying. Like, it's absolutely binary. And so if you're in a firm that's dying, maybe you don't notice it day one, but 3 years, the computers are old. The router's old. The tech support gets cut. The marketing gets cut. All these other sorts of things that put downward pressure on their career, their ability to learn, their ability to make money, and ultimately will push them out of the organization. So I think it's like being very transparent about what growth means, about making sure that they feel secure, and it's about paying your people at or above market rate. Like, if somebody's good, like, pay them more than figure out what the market is and pay them a few bucks more. It's not hard.
I'll never forget a conversation that I had with a particular law firm owner who he was trying to hire intake talent, and he wanted this 85% close rate. This person was going to take from entry all the way to signing the documents, and we got to how much he wanted to pay the person, and he stated $35,000. And I was like, I guess good luck. Really lots of good luck on that one. You may want to go up in the talent market on there, to say the least. Okay, so Ryan, I have 3 very simple questions to ask you here at the end, but before we get to those, if people want to follow you or learn more about the event that you have coming up, etc., what's the best way for them to find the world of Ryan?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the best way. I accept all connections. So just connect with me on LinkedIn. I try to share my journey as openly as I possibly can, and as accurately as I can. I try to write for... when I write these posts, I try to write for my younger self. Like, what do I wish I had known, and just share that out there.
Perfect. And so you'll see a link in the show notes. If you want to click on that link, go follow Ryan on LinkedIn, connect with him. He's a great resource, very, earnest person. I like the term earnest for when I see your posts. All right. So the 3 simple questions I have for you, Ryan, are: what are you reading these days?
I just finished Stephen King's Fairy Tale, which was just a fantastic, joyful book. I love the book.
Awesome. What are you watching?
Oh, man. I don't have time to watch a ton of TV. Basically, if I'm home, the kids probably have like Christina on the Coast on in the background, but I'm usually doing something else. So really, watching TV is not high. But you want to know what though? I'm going to say something. Yeah. I started on a flight rewatching the season 1 of The Sopranos, and I got into that. I haven't watched it in 25 years, and I was like, oh my God, this is still so good. So maybe at some point I will start getting back. I watched all of season 1. Maybe I'll go into season 2.
Truly, it's a show that holds up for sure. And then the last question, what are you listening to these days?
Oh, I love the new Foo Fighters album. I think it's their best album, and it's painful, it's raw, dealing a lot with grief, but yep. I just think it's a fantastic album. So probably listening to Foo Fighters the most right now.
Fantastic. All right, Ryan, I appreciate you being on the show. Everyone should go and connect with you on LinkedIn. So Ryan, thanks again.
Thank you, Charlie.
And we will see you all on the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.